It's about that time to grab your favorite snack and sit back and relax, because you are now listening to the MovieTime podcast with your hosts, Low-Key Geek Renee Zalata and Blake the Wolf. Take it away, boys.
Hey, what's up, everyone? We are back. And when I say we, I mean me. What's going on, everyone? Renee here, back with another episode of Movie Time. I am flying solo once again because my buddy, movie bro, Blake, is off again, roaming the world like Kane from Kung Fu. He's taken advantage of some of his vacation time. So he is definitely out and about and traveling the world and all that good stuff. Hopefully he will be back next week. Also, apologies for not having an upload last week. Just because of scheduling, also not knowing if he'll be around to record. And to be quite honest with all of you, I was still in recovery mode from COVID. I unfortunately got hit with La Llorona, the evil La Llorona. I got hit with that literally after New York Film Festival. So, it hasn't been fun, but I am obviously feeling a whole lot better now, and I'm catching up on a lot of stuff. That's why if you happen to also subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll notice that some things are slow in uploading. I do have a backlog of things I'm working on. It is Halloween, so happy Halloween to all of you who are possibly listening to this on Halloween Day. This is the morning of Halloween Day Eve, Devil's Night Eve. Fire it up. One of my favorite movies, The Crow. Hopefully you'll get that reference there. But it is the morning of the 30th, and this is when I'm recording this, and a lot of Halloween prep. So things to expect from the channel, and probably some things you'll also expect here on the podcast as well are, in this episode, let's just start off there. In this episode, I will be talking about Five Nights at Freddy's. That was a new movie that came out last week. One of those unique situations where we haven't seen this probably since the whole, lockdown height of the pandemic happened, where we actually have a day and date release of a brand new movie that released in theaters. At the same time, it's releasing also on streaming on Peacock, which was an interesting strategy, a strategy I honestly thought was going to backfire. But lo and behold, it did not. And they actually saw very good results at the box office, which was really, really great to see for them. So we're going to be talking about Five Nights at Freddy's, my thoughts and opinions about that movie, and just a recap of the success it had over at the box office for the weekend. And since we are in spooky season and we are talking about Halloween stuff, I thought it would be a good time to kind of recap the best horror movies that I've seen this year so far. Now, horror movies is something that, if you are familiar with the channel, familiar with us here at the podcast, I am slowly getting back into the whole horror movie genre. I feel like I have been doing that for the last several years. The pandemic definitely helped me get back into that stuff as I was catching up with a lot of the hybrid horror movies that A24 puts out. Blake, he does not watch that stuff. So that's why it could be kind of difficult to talk about it on the podcast. But since he's not here, I can talk about anything I want, right? But I thought it would be a good chance for me to kind of recap the best horror movies I've seen this year so far. And if you haven't seen them, maybe you'll hear me talk about them and it'll spawn your interest there. But if, like I was saying before, also if you follow us on the YouTube channel, I uploaded this brand new series that I'm going to do every year around the Halloween season, and that is first time frights. This year I did 7 nights of first time frights where I watched 7 horror movies that I have never seen before, and I am posting my reactions and commentary on these movies on the YouTube channel. On Friday, I uploaded The Stuff, a movie that came out in 1984. Is it? I don't want to speak out of term here. I believe it's 85. Sorry, 85. And the theme for this year's First Time Frights was 80s. 80s kind of horror, camp horror, whatever you want to call it, but just reminiscing and remembering about my time spending it at my local video rental store. And when I was young, what I used to do all the time was that I used to always peruse the horror section. Leisure Time Video was this video rental store in Queens. When I grew up in Astoria, Queens, we had one literally like a block away. But then later on in life, when in Queens, in my teens, I lived in another area where there was a Leisure Time Video not that far from me, and they had 2 floors. The basement was where they kept all of their horror movies. And I used to always go down there because I was always fascinated by the idea of watching these horror movies, because they were a little bit taboo. I knew these were movies I shouldn't be watching because I was still underage at the time. But, with such hits like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, the Hellraiser series, things like that, The Exorcist, a lot of my friends were watching those things. So, of course, I would peruse the aisles to see what's there. And there were so many horror movies, especially from the 80s. And I always remember the cover arts, on the VHS cassettes. And a lot of the art was like drawn art. They looked like they could be illustrations on a magazine or a comic book. And I remember I was always fascinated by these things. But I always put the box back and then I walked away. Because I was too chicken shit to watch them, right? Or rent them and give them a shot. So I figured now would be a good time to kind of revisit that time and bring back from the memory banks those cover arts that I remember watching or that I remember looking at and, giving those movies a shot. So I had a lot of fun recording those reactions. It's just now editing and posting them on the YouTube channel. So hopefully the rest of them will be going up this week. So definitely stay tuned if you are subscribed to the channel there. And just posting more reviews. I'm still doing recaps from New York Film Festival. Obviously, when you watch 20 plus films, there's a lot of stuff to review. And I'm hoping to launch all those reviews on the channel as well, along with other stuff. So again, always appreciate the support we've been getting here on the podcast and on the YouTube channel as well. So if you happen to be supporting us on both platforms, super thanks to all of you who are doing that. I really, really appreciate it. So why don't we just dive in to talking about Five Nights at Freddy's. So full disclosure, I was never a fan of the video game, not because I didn't like it, but just because I never played it. I never got around to playing it. But there's a whole slew of younger generation who love this series. I was somewhat aware of that, but it really came into full fruition when I did my trailer reactions on the YouTube channel. And those got tons of views and a lot of comments of people dying and looking forward to watching this movie when it comes out. And majority of them were definitely of a younger generation. So I knew that this was going to be big. This was going to be massive. And if there's anything that we're learning this year as far as movies are concerned, especially box office is concerned, is that if you give people what they've been looking forward to or something that they've been missing and they're getting it for the very first time, they are going to go out and support it. For the most part, there are certain pockets that will go out and support this stuff. We saw it with the Barbie crowd. where, Barbie has been an IP that has not been touched movie wise, unless you count those really piss poor direct to DVD animated movies that they did. But as far as like a live action serious take on the Barbie franchise, that has never been done. So obviously you had that pocket of people that went out in full force to support it. Plus, not only the fact that they did that, but they created a whole meme with the whole Barbenheimer situation, and that went out and has helped the support for Oppenheimer as well. But Oppenheimer is also a movie that was directed by Christopher Nolan, who gets tons of support. And for a historical subject matter, obviously that was going to draw a lot of attention and a lot of crowds. So you had that happening, becoming this big thing to do this year. Mario Brothers. Earlier in the year, we had the Super Mario Brothers cartoon movie that came out, again, fulfilling a need that has not been fulfilled yet, right? And people went out in full force to support that as well, So we saw that. Taylor Swift has been going, doing gangbusters in the concert circuit with her Eras tour, selling out every night, every show in every city she goes to, doing multiple nights, in a row. Especially with the exuberant amounts of money people have to pay for those tickets. Now she comes and on her own decides to release a concert film without any studio backing. That's something that people need to realize. She didn't go to like a Warner Brothers, or she didn't go to a Sony Pictures. She herself funded and put this movie out with her team and made a deal directly with AMC Theaters to, show this film, which was only supposed to be one weekend, right? But because of pre-sales and things going nuts, they extended the run. Other theater chains like Regal are able to show it due to Fathom events, right? I believe that's how they're showing it, because Fathom events always do these special one-night event stuff, but they're doing it basically every weekend since it came out. Tomorrow, for Halloween, they're doing a run for Halloween Day. And the film itself has passed $200 million worldwide. Again, you're filling a niche and a pocket that has not been fulfilled. For those who didn't get to see the concert because of the ticket prices, or because they just couldn't get a ticket because those things were selling out like crazy, now they had a chance to see it in the theaters, right? Or for those who just want to relive the moments that they remember at the concert, they were able to go back, right? So we're seeing a lot of this stuff happening this year, and I think people are taking note of it. And Five Nights at Freddy's was going to be one of those things. And I also knew that too, because I remember I was hanging out with a bunch of friends one weekend, and a lot of my friends have kids. And one friend of mine, his two boys were around, and he asked him, because we were talking about Five Nights at Freddy's. He's like, "Are you guys looking forward to Five Nights at Freddy's?" And they both were just like, "Hell yeah, got to see it in the theater." So the hunger was there, and it definitely showed, because Five Nights at Freddy's, for a Blumhouse production, had probably one of the biggest opening weekends that they've ever had, especially for an October release, from what I read online. So, let's see. Five Nights at Freddy's. Let's see. It was the top Halloween weekend opening ever. It was the biggest Blumhouse opening, and best ever for a horror pick rated PG-13, and third best for any horror pick behind the It movies. Can you believe that? That is insane. Good for them. Domestically, Five Nights at Freddy's opened at $78 million this past weekend. I was personally not expecting that, because again, you also are releasing it at the same time on Peacock. So another thing that we've been noticing, which is a huge trend, is that most people aren't going to the theaters as much anymore because they are just so comfortable with watching things at home with such easy access to movies, through multiple streaming platforms. Majority of people rather wait till the movie comes out at home, right? Which is understandable. I get it, especially with movie ticket prices being as expensive as they are. So I really thought that was going to eat into the box office numbers for Five Nights at Freddy's. Nope, didn't happen. $78 million opening weekend. Came in second as far as biggest domestic opening weekends for all video game adaptation movies. Right behind Super Mario Brothers that opened up at 146 million. But I think at this point, unless you're going to do a sequel to Mario Brothers, and I'm telling you, this would do gangbusters if they finally do a Zelda movie, Legend of Zelda, right? I don't think anything is touching Super Mario Brothers at this point. But to come in second with 78 million, which is only a couple of million above Sonic 2, which opened up at 72 million that opening weekend, is insane, right? And we're just talking about domestic numbers. I believe worldwide, it made 130 million, which is a crazy, crazy amount of numbers. And good for them, good for Blumhouse. Because again, if you know Blumhouse, right, you know that their budgets are extremely small. And the budget for this movie in particular was only 20 million. And I'm sure the majority of that was getting the licensing rights for Five Nights at Freddy's. 20 million to open up domestically at 78 million, 130 worldwide. Whew! And you wonder, and it's no question why Blumhouse is so successful, why A24 is so successful, because they choose to really focus on important things. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk about when I talk about the movie is, with such a small budget, how do you make it appealing to those of us who are just so used to and accustomed to big budget productions, right? And they did a lot of interesting stuff that I thought was worth noting. Another thing to worth noting here too is that, and I don't know how they got this stat, so take it with a grain of salt, but they're saying that 94% of the audience who went out to watch Five Nights at Freddy's this weekend was under the age of 35, which makes perfect sense because I said again, it appeals to a younger demographic, a demographic who remember when this game came out back in, I want to say 2008 is when this game came out. Let's see. Let's look. Five Nights at Freddy's. Let's take a look real quick here. Video game series. The first game came out in 2014. Sorry, 2014. So the first game came out in 2014. Obviously, it spawned a slew of sequels. A whole bunch of people who are really into this franchise and supporting the franchise. And for 9 years now. And it's no wonder why this movie did pretty well. So, all that said, again, I have no ties because I never played the games. The only things I did was react to the movie trailers. And I got some additional information from the comments, filling me in a little bit about the lore. I chose not to play the game before watching the movie because I wanted to approach the movie with a clear mind, as an outsider, as someone who's like, oh, I've heard about this Five Nights at Freddy's and I'm curious as to what all the hubbub's about, right? So I went to watch it. I didn't go to the theater to watch it. I watched it at home because, again, I just been locked here, busy catching up on things. So I watched it here at home on Peacock. And I'll say this. It's a decent movie. I was entertained through most of it. I thought that they did a really good job at filling in someone like an outsider like myself, filling in that person on this universe. They gave a good amount of lore, which I'm sure there's still a lot of lore missing, but they gave enough to make it make sense to someone like myself who's not familiar with anything. However, I'll say that for a quote unquote horror movie, I didn't find it scary at all. Maybe because it was PG-13, or maybe because they just didn't really hone in a lot on the whole horror aspect of it. Because if I were to remember, when the first game came out, it was one of those first person kind of horror situations where you're in this place, it's dark, and things are happening around you, right? So obviously you're going to expect a lot of jump scares, a lot of like, you know, really fast flashes of imagery as things are creeping around behind you and all that. So I guess I was expecting more of that, but you know, which they did. They did some of it, but it wasn't enough to make it feel spooky or scary to me. That being said, there were a lot of really gruesome moments that happened in the kills in the movie. You know, this is a horror movie. This is a franchise where people do catch the business and all that. And there were some moments I found to be really gruesome. And whenever it happened, I would be like, whoa, because I wasn't really expecting that. You know, and again, if you're familiar with the podcast and all that, we don't heed to spoiler warnings and all that. We're always full on spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, or you don't want to be spoiled, you know, always keep that in mind, that every time we talk about movies here on the podcast, we are always full on spoilers. So that's just a heads up to everybody. But there were two kills that happened in the movie that really got me. The first one was when the babysitter caught it. So like when they were breaking into the restaurant, and they were trying to wreck the place to try to get Mike fired. Mike is the character name played by Josh Hutcherson, who I am going to talk about in a little bit. But they were trying to get him fired because he's in this custody battle with his sister and his aunt. And they're trying to prove him that he is incapable of, you know, raising a child and can't keep a job and all that. So they thought, oh, let's go to his job and trash it, and then he'll get fired and all that. So that's the first time we saw the animatronics fully on alive and doing stuff. And the babysitter was in cahoots with the aunt. So her crew went in first and they were catching the business. She goes in looking after them, and she gets basically chopped in half. You know, you see the shadow of her getting lured into this room and then getting lured into the mouth of the animatronic, and the animatronic just chomps down on her and half her body drops to the floor. And that was pretty damn gruesome. I was like, whoa, was not expecting that. And I thought that was actually pretty cool. The other time I thought was pretty gruesome was when Matthew Lillard's character, again, if you haven't seen the movie, sorry, but we're going to talk about it. He was the one that, you know, kind of shows up as the career counselor trying to help Mike get a job. He's the one that, you know, insisted Mike work at this restaurant. And it turns out that he is the owner of the restaurant and the one who has been luring kids to their deaths, putting these kids into the animatronics so that their souls will live on forever in them. He was called the Yellow Rabbit. He's the one that has been luring all these kids. So, you know, in this big quote unquote climactic ending, the kids finally stand up to him as they realize that it was him that caused their demise and why they're trapped there and all that. So he is in his own suit, and I guess the spirits of the kids forced his suit to work against him. And he had these things by the stomach and the rib cage that started digging into him, and they showed it briefly where it was piercing right into his body. These like metallic fingers, like clutches, these claws, whatever. And that was pretty gruesome, and that was like really painful to watch. I was like, whoa, that's rough. Rough on you, Matthew Lillard. How dare you? So those were the two like most gruesome moments in the film, and I thought those were really well done. But for the most part, like I said, the movie wasn't that scary to me. But the things that I really appreciated the movie for, outside of those gruesome moments, was a lot of the acting. Josh Hutcherson, who we all know from the Hunger Games franchise, he acted his ass off, man. How come this guy is not getting more roles? I can't for the life of me, I can't tell you the last time I remember him in anything outside of the Hunger Games franchise. Maybe there were some things I missed, but this guy deserves, I think, more chances in doing stuff, because he was really, really fucking good in this movie. He was someone who was suffering from trauma because his brother was kidnapped in front of him. So he has these suppressed memories of, he thinks he knew who did it. So he's been trying to induce some like sleep techniques to use his dreams to try to call out the face of the kidnapper and all that. So here's a guy who basically is suffering from sleep deprivation, right? So he's taking pills, he's trying all these tactics and all that stuff. Again, he's facing this dilemma with the custody battle with his sister. Their parents are gone. Mother died. Father couldn't take it and left. So they're left alone. So it's a rough situation. He's being, evicted from his place because he can't afford the rent and all this stuff. He lost his job because he violently attacked someone because he was imagining things in his head about that person. And he displayed a lot of emotion and anger and like just everything, full range of stuff. And I really, truly believe that he cared for his sister and everything. So he did an awesome job. It was nice to see Mary Stuart Masterson. That is a name from the 80s and 90s that I haven't heard in a very long time. It was nice to see her back. The actress who played the sister Abby, Lil Abby, I don't want to be mean, but not the greatest actress. I found her to be a little annoying at times. However, there was a blonde boy, I believe his name is Grant Feely, who played one of the spirits of the kids that were kidnapped and who now possess the animatronics. He was really good. He was really good. I hope to see that kid do more stuff in the future because it looks like that kid has a future in acting. Matthew Lillard, he was Matthew Lillard. He's basically what you expected him to be. Serious at times, corny at times, and then very devilish at the end as the reveal happened that he was the one behind a lot of this stuff. I also really appreciated the fact that they used practical effects. Very, very little usage of CG in this movie. Again, that's what keeps the costs down, right? And the animatronics works in a movie like this when you are dealing with animatronics coming to life at this restaurant. So I think they did a really good job with that. And what I was alluding to before, how can you make a movie look more than the budget dictates, right? And a lot of that has to do with the cinematography and editing. They did a really good job with the cinematography in this movie that it made it look more than a $20 million movie. You had a lot of like interesting aerial shots or above ceiling shots looking down. There's certain like artistic choices in those type of shots. A lot of great drone shots following the car as it's driving through the town or going to the restaurant. A lot of great editing choices that helped mask the lack of CG, right? Or quick transitions that really help with the flow. Nice framing, nice colorizations of the scenes that you're seeing on screen. So overall, I think they did an amazing job at making the movie just look good. It didn't look like it was like a made for TV movie or anything like a lot of these streaming movies look when they come out, especially some of the Netflix stuff. So I think they really did a good job. And like I said, it was entertaining. You can tell they really did their best to service the fans of this franchise. I can see how the fans will just probably eat this up. Now, again, I have nothing to compare the lore with because I'm not familiar with a lot of this stuff. So I'm sure there will be some questions or some argument as to some of the choices that they made. But I think overall the fans should be ecstatic. And from what it looks like, I think they are. Especially with the future of where this could go. Because the way the movie ended, Matthew Lillard's character, even though he's getting eaten alive by this damn costume or the animatronic, he's still hanging in there. We saw him in the room reaching out to the ghost child. And the child's looking at him like, Yeah, and I think he mumbled something like, I will be back, or you can't get rid of me, or something. I don't know. I don't remember. And then there's something with this little statue that popped up several times in this movie. It popped up to scare Mike in the security office when he was there for the first time. It popped up to scare Mike again in the cleaning closet halfway through the movie. And as a post-credit scene, it knocked on the door of the cab and then showed up in the passenger seat of the cab driver. My personal take on that, and I'm curious as to what all of you think, so definitely let me know in the comments or through the email address that we have in the description of this podcast. I think that's possessed by the spirit of the brother, the younger brother. And I think it's trying to get back to Mike. That's just my theory. I'm definitely curious as to what everyone's talking about or what everyone feels about it. But yeah, and then there was this interesting hidden message at the very end of the credits that was being spoken out loud in like, it felt like they used a speak and spell, robotic voice. And it was spelling out, come find me, right? So I don't know if they're referring to the brother or the owner or whoever the case is. Maybe people out there may know who that is in reference to. But again, that's like a nice little tease as to what could potentially happen in the future of this franchise. And with the results that we're seeing now, box office results, and I don't know what the streaming numbers are, because people who probably also went to watch this in the movie theater, they're probably so hyped up that they went home and watched it again at home, right? I guarantee you that happened a lot. That's why, unfortunately, I also do feel like this is going to see a huge drop off next weekend as far as box office numbers are concerned. And plus, it was perfect timing because of Halloween. I mean, this came out Halloween weekend. Halloween is on a Tuesday, but majority of people celebrated their Halloween over the weekend. And what a perfect way to do so if you wanted to go out and watch a movie and you were a fan of this franchise. It's just all the stars aligned perfectly for the release of this movie. And for Blumhouse, everything worked out wonderfully. So everything was there in alignment, and I think that's why they had a huge success here. So because of that, I will guarantee you that they're going to continue this franchise, and we're going to get Five Nights at Freddy's Part 2, Electric Boogaloo, or what have you. So yeah. So overall, if you follow me on Letterboxd, you saw my rating already. But for those of you who have not, I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't hit that like heart, because I was entertained and it was decent, but it's not something that I could see myself go back and rewatch. It's just, it didn't hit me like that. But I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I saw some critic online say that this movie made the video game adaptations. It took that genre a couple steps back because of how bad this movie was, and this movie is getting hammered through Rotten Tomatoes. Right now, it's at a 26% at Rotten Tomatoes, and on IMDb, it's a 5.6 out of 10. But I feel like that's also to be expected with a movie like this, because this movie was not meant for these critics. That's not the core audience there. The core audience are, those people who commented on my trailer reactions. Those people who have been fans of the video games ever since it came out in 2014. Those under 34, 35-year-old people who went out to support the movie at the box office. That's the audience. So this is definitely one of those moments where the critics and audience are very, very subtracted. They're very, very they're not in alignment, because it's not a fit. It's not like a one-to-one feeling or fit there. And I get that. I'm not surprised by that one bit. So yeah, so there you go. Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm curious as to what all of you thought about the movie. If you saw it, or if you didn't see it, what made you not decide to watch it? Were you just not interested? Or now that you heard me talk about it, or now that you're hearing people talk about it, are you interested in watching it? Even more so when you have a chance. Let me know. And like I mentioned, if you are interested in leaving a comment, or if you want to ask a question to myself or to Blake or to the both of us, there is an email address you could find in the description of the podcast. Shoot off your questions through that email, and if the question is good enough, we will feature it in a future episode and we will address it. And I feel like that's, especially for the podcast audience, I feel like that's a great way to engage with the podcast audience, because even though, like, I see Spotify has like a comment section, you can leave comments for every episode. You can even leave comments when you rate the podcast, but we are not able to reply to those comments, which really sucks. Unlike on YouTube, we are able to reply to all comments, and we could have like conversations on there. So best way to engage, and I definitely want to increase engagement with all of you listening, because again, without you guys, we wouldn't be doing this. So check out the email address and shoot over some questions, comments, whatever you want to there. And we'll take a look, and we will address, some of those in future episodes, because we think that will be a lot of fun. So yeah, and again, just a reminder too, if you haven't done so yet, a great way to also show support for the channel is to leave a rating on the podcast platform you're listening to this on, and comment through there. That's a great way to kind of help with the algorithm, help spread awareness of this podcast and share it with others who may be like-minded like you and I and Blake, who are looking for something new to listen to and maybe something different from the normal stuff that's out there right now. Or just to add us along to, the playlist and listen list, or whatever list you want to call it on podcast. But yeah, definitely will help support the channel. And another way to support the channel is by checking out our partners, our affiliate partners. One of which I'm really trying to push because, again, I subscribe to this service and I think it could be great value to a lot of you, especially if you are a fan of watching movies online. And if you want to really unlock a full potential of your streaming platform, a lot of people don't realize and aren't aware that there is so much content on a streaming platform, but you don't have access to all of them in your region. Here in the US, we are allowed access to what they only allow us access to. It could be due to licensing, contracts, all that stuff like that. But if you go to the same service in a different region, let's say like the UK, you'll see a slew of other stuff that they have available to them over there. One great example that I love using is I really wanted to watch that movie No One Will Save You on Hulu, but I don't subscribe to Hulu. I have Disney Plus, and I found out that the Disney Plus in the UK, they incorporate Hulu movies on Disney Plus, and not just movies, but also series. So if you wanted to watch The Bear, you could watch it on Disney Plus in the UK. So I use Surfshark to VPN, and basically what the VPN does, it spoofs your IP address to make it look like you are coming from another territory, because you are connecting to a server in that territory and they're providing you with that IP address mask. So I dialed into a UK server through Surfshark, and once I did that and the connection was clear, I logged into Disney Plus, and bam, there was No One Will Save You, The Bear, Only Murders in the Building, all that stuff that's on Hulu. Now I can get on Disney Plus, and it streams perfectly fine, as if I'm just normally streaming it. No problem whatsoever. So yeah, so you just heard me talk about Surfshark. Let's have pre-recorded me talk about Surfshark a little bit more and tell you why you should choose them and why I think it's going to be a great value to you. So happy to have Surfshark on board as one of the affiliate partners for the Low-Key Geek channel here. If you're in the market for a new VPN, I highly recommend a company like Surfshark. And trust me, I've tried all of the VPNs out there, and by far Surfshark is the #1 clear-cut winner for me because of many reasons. Yes, of course, it gives you great protection and security protection while you're browsing the internet, especially when you travel and you're in other countries or other states, and you want to make sure your browsing data is, fully secured and no one is like spying in on you or stealing some of your stuff that you're transmitting online. What I mainly use Surfshark for is for unlocking the streaming services that I already pay for. There's no better feeling in knowing that you can get more out of your streaming services by accessing content that is not necessarily readily available for you in your region. What do I mean by that? Well, a great example is that recently I wanted to check out some movies off of Hulu, but I don't subscribe to Hulu. But I found out that in the UK, Hulu movies are shown on Disney Plus. So all I had to do was connect to the UK server there through Surfshark. And then once I was connected, I just logged into Disney Plus and bam, Hulu movies were available and I was able to enjoy it without any issues with quality due to speed, because everything was playing perfectly and the audio was coming in crisp and all that. It's as if I was just watching it normally through my normal internet connection. But the main reason why Surfshark is by far the best is because it is the cheapest out there. And I can't stress that enough, where, we're all trying to save money here. And with all the stuff that we pay for on a monthly basis, the last thing we need is to add on an additional high monthly payment to our bills, and Surfshark will not hurt your wallet at all. As a matter of fact, if you scan that QR code you see on the screen right now, or you check out the link in the description of this video, you'll find out how you can get Surfshark for 85% off plus 2 additional months for free. free. Again, I can't speak highly enough about it, and I'm so glad I came across him, and I'm so glad that they decided to partner up with us here. So again, if you are in the market for a VPN, or maybe now you're more interested more so now to check them out for the first time, scan the QR code you see on the screen right now, or check out the link in the description and find out how you can get 85% off plus 2 months for free. Again, thank you so much. And if you do try Surfshark out, let me know what you thought about him when you do, and let me know your thoughts about the service in the comments of this video. Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. Make sure to check out the link in the description of this episode, or scan the QR code you see on the screen right now and find out how you can get unlimited data for only $15 a month. Save a whole ton of money on your monthly cell phone bill without sacrificing any of the quality. No contracts to worry about, you can cancel anytime, and the transferring process is so easy. You can keep your phone number or get a new one. Need a new phone? They got you covered as well. Over a year ago, I switched from Verizon without any hesitation, and it's not just because I found Ryan Reynolds to be a sexy mother. Shut your mouth. I'm just talking about Mint Mobile, but I guarantee you if you give Mint Mobile a shot, you'll understand why I made that switch, and you too will be a happy Mint Mobile customer. So once again, check out Mint Mobile, link in the description of this episode or QR code on your screen. Check them out. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far, but before we continue, I wanted to quickly talk about Bulletproof Coffee. Bulletproof Coffee is my favorite coffee of choice to start off my mornings with. Why? Because it's clean coffee. What does that mean? Well, one, there are no chemicals in it. Why? Because they go through this multi-step process of making sure that all of their beans are fully clean and free of any chemicals, so that when you get the beans delivered to you, it is the pure beans, the pure coffee, the goodness that you've been wanting, the taste, the flavor, and the nutritional value as well, without worrying about any added chemicals or anything else put into the mix there. It also doesn't have that weird acidic taste that some coffees give you. I don't know how about you, but for me, some coffees kind of give me that weird sensation in my stomach, makes me a little burpy, and it kind of drags me down a little bit instead of really waking me up, which is something that I need from my coffee every day. Bulletproof also offers a lot of keto-friendly snacks and supplements, anything that you need to kind of add to your everyday nutritional needs, add to your diet, and make you, and pretty much transforms the way you feel every day. So for a limited time, if you use this code that you see on the screen right now, LOWKEYGEEK, all caps, one word, you can get 15% off your order. So what is it better than that, right? Check out the link in the description of this episode. Use this code, get yourself your discount, and make your mornings a little bit more bulletproof with Bulletproof Coffee. Now, back to the episode. All right, thank you, me. And I'm pretty sure I talked about other affiliate partners amongst Surfshark there. So again, a great way to help support the channel and the podcast is to check out those affiliates and sign up or make a purchase or whatever the case is. You know, that because all the proceeds that go that are gathered from those will go back to the channel and go back to helping this channel grow. And like I said in previous episodes, it will help us get a mic for Blake, who desperately needs one. And again, for all the support, we greatly appreciate it. All right. So last thing I want to talk about today is just to do a little recap of my favorite horror movies of the year so far, given that this is spooky season. I've been just watching a bunch of horror movies lately, and I wanted to kind of, go over, and I'm using Letterboxd to kind of help joggle my memory as to all the horror movies that I was able to watch this year. And I'm basically going to call out those that I've rated 3 stars and above. And I didn't watch a lot of horror movies this year. And I think the lowest rating I gave a horror movie this year is 3 stars. So slim pickings a little bit over here, but I definitely want to go over some of the top ones for sure. So I would say the bottom of my list is, and when I say horror movies, this is the genre that is categorized for these movies through Letterboxd, even though it could be a mixed genre, which is a great case in point with this one, and that's Renfield. This is more of like a horror/action comedy movie. It stars Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult. Came out back in February, and I thought it was enjoyable. I love Nicolas Cage's shtick every time he's in a movie. I can't wait for his new one to come out, and a lot of people are really talking about that movie right now. Was that Dreams Come True or something like that? Or Dream Scenario. Sorry, Dream Scenario. Another A24 hit that looks like that's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. So yeah, Renfield I gave it 3 stars, and I liked it because it was a lot of fun. It played on the whole Dracula lore, and with Renfield, his lackey finally standing up for himself and going against his boss. I thought it was an amazing premise. I thought it had it had a good amount of chuckles, but it also had a good amount of kind of eye rolls and all that. But I thought personally it was a lot of fun to watch. I would watch it again, because especially with since some time has passed, that's like one of those movies there. If you just want like a silly time watching a movie at home, definitely put that on, and you'll have a blast watching it. And the chemistry between both Nicholases there is really good. It's very well done, and Awkwafina is not that bad in the movie either. I just didn't believe the whole chemistry between her and Renfield. I thought that was a little bit, it just didn't work for me. I thought it was a little bit far-fetched, but definitely the relationship between Dracula and Renfield, Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult, I thought that dynamic was very, very well done. I really, really enjoyed it. Next here, and I'm just doing my top 5. Next here is Resident Evil. I didn't watch any Resident Evil. Evil Dead Rise. The new entry into the whole Evil Dead franchise. And I think personally this could help resurrect it and bring a new light to the movies, because I thought this was very well done. This was a great first start to a new avenue in the whole Evil Dead franchise. That it obviously this is not going away, because they constantly keep trying to bring this back. They had the series, the cable series, that was pretty popular with fans. I believe it lasted 2 or 3 seasons before it was canceled. They had the very gruesome reboot that happened. Was that Freddy Alvarez who did it? The Evil Dead remake? Let me look it up. Evil Dead. Because that came out in 2013. Freddy Alvarez, yeah. Which I thought was actually very well done. It brought the whole Evil Dead Army of Darkness thing, it turned into a very kind of campy, comedic, horror type of movie series. And the show itself was also very campy and comedic and all that. That 2013 Evil Dead really brought the whole horror aspect back, but also brought it to that level of the gory horror, the really, really gruesome, gory horror. But I thought it was pretty well done, and I was surprised that they didn't really continue with that. They're calling it a reimagining of the original Evil Dead, but I thought it was a pretty good attempt of bringing that back. But Evil Dead Rise, I love what they did here. Probably one of the more iconic openings of a title crawl I've ever seen in a movie, which I really strongly support and love. But I love that they kind of changed it up a little bit, where they took it out of the woods and brought it into a metropolitan city. Majority of the film takes place in an apartment, so that's their quote unquote cabin, right? And I loved how a lot of the stuff that happened not in front of your face, but through a point of view of someone else looking out through a keyhole or through like one of those peepholes from a door. Because that was a really, really amazing idea of doing that. and it added a little bit to the scare factor, to the like horror factor, where you're just like, what's happening? Like, that's who's out there, who's doing all that stuff. What is she doing now? And the actresses they got for this, it's just so good. I mean, the actress who actually played the quote unquote main villain here, Evil Dead Rise. Is it Lily Sullivan? Is that the one? She the one? No, sorry. It's Alyssa Sutherland. With the way she contorts her body and all that, whew, she was really good. Really, really good. And probably one of the more gruesome scenes I've seen in a while, with the cheese grater. Oh, that's something I'll never forget, because that's something I could feel when I was watching it. So it had like a good mix of horror and gruesomeness. And funny too, like if you're familiar with the Evil Dead lore, it's so fascinating how, and I had to do research on this, how with the original Evil Dead, it had, in Army of Darkness, we learned that there were 3 Necronomicons, 3 books of the dead. So obviously the Raimi ones was focused on one of them. Fede Alvarez is focused on another one. This one focuses on the 3rd. And if I'm wrong in any of this, please let me know. But from my research, that's what I found out. And I thought that's brilliant, especially for the hardcore fans of the franchise. I thought that was really smart and very well done. Now, the only thing that prevented me from giving it a higher rating, because I gave it 3 out of 5, and I did heart it, was the ending. The ending was just really... The ending kind of brought it back to a little bit of the cheesy, like, what the fuck is going on here? When all 3 family members combined to form this creature. Like, that was a little silly. I also wasn't expecting that whole family to catch the business and turn into a deadite. Turn into deadites. But when they all formed into the whole freaking creature, like, that was a little silly. That was kind of laughable. But I love how, we have like what appears to be like the new female Ash. Nice little throwbacks again with her using like, the chainsaw. That is portrayed by Lily Sullivan. She's also very good in this movie too. And she had her own like one-liners too, which I thought that was really funny and very cute. So I really appreciated Evil Dead Rise. That is a movie I definitely will watch again, especially now because that came out in April, right? So some time has definitely passed for that, and I would definitely love to revisit that because I thought it was very, very well done. Yeah, so that comes in at number 4 for me. In number 3, Knock at the Cabin, the M. Night Shyamalan movie of the apocalypse, the pending apocalypse with Dave Bautista. I really like this movie a lot. I have a feeling not a lot of people may have liked it, but I did. I thought it was very well done. I love the fact that it definitely played more in the whole suspense in the suspense of it all. It definitely was like a bottle movie where it just took place in that cabin or in that portion of the cabin, and you don't really know exactly what's true or what's not true. And everything that they are dictating, they end up showing on like a news broadcast about the end of the world happening, right? So I really, really love the whole mystery behind it all. And it is kind of horrific to think about it. If you're approached by these four individuals who really claim something, and they have this like full on belief on something, and they are basically holding you hostage to make a choice, to make a sacrifice, right? Like, that is pretty horrific. And again, anything that happens in the woods is horrific. Because I feel like the one thing that you learn about horror movies that involves the woods is that it's so hard to escape. You have nowhere to go, especially when you're deep in the woods. So I really, really like the whole play on all of that stuff. And I really, really appreciate it. This is definitely, I think, in my opinion, one of M. Night's more recent movies that was really well done. And I really, really liked it. I really appreciated it for the most part. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, it's been so long because this came out in February. I don't remember how it ended. Is that bad? Because I'm pretty sure it had like a semi-twist ending. Or was this a movie where he didn't really put a twist to it? Oh, I remember. Okay. So basically what happened was that they didn't make a choice, right? So every time they didn't make a choice, one of the four had to sacrifice themselves, right? Or they sacrificed one of them. And by them not making a choice, they put a lot of faith in their hope that they will prevail. Because the thing was that if the three of them made a sacrifice, then life will live on. If they didn't, then those three were going to be forced to live a life with everyone being gone from the face of the earth, right? Because it was basically like all of these like plagues were going to happen, to destroy humanity. So three of them, the two dads and the daughter, they decided not to do anything. They just decided that they will let their hope in faith get them through it, right? And when it all was said and done, they went out and they came across this diner where they saw people living there, or people were hanging out, watching the news broadcast and everything. And it was one of those open-ended things where it's like, wait, did this really happen? Was this really going to be the end of us? Right? Yeah, it was something like that. I definitely should rewatch this movie because it was a fascinating ending because it had you think about it for a while. And I remember when Blake and I had a conversation about it, we debated the whole ending and what we would have done and how we would have lived with ourselves for making a choice against humanity. Because I remember one of the characters said, what's worth living? Is it really worth saving humanity when they treat us the way they treated us? Because they're a gay couple and they were always bullied and talked about, in his mind, humanity failed him. So why should he be the one to save humanity? Save something that failed him, right? And that, again, that leads to so many great conversations, honestly. So that's why I really, really appreciated that movie. Yeah, that's why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. So yeah, so that was my third favorite of the year. My second favorite of the year is No One Will Save You. The movie I spoke about, that's on Hulu, that I was able to watch on Disney Plus, territoried in the UK thanks to Surfshark. But No One Will Save You is I thought it was a great, simple movie that really had a lot of scares in it. and it really brought back the whole fear in aliens. Because I feel like in recent years, um, anytime aliens are portrayed in movies or whatever, they're always good. They're always willing to want to work with us, right? Work with humanity. There's a movie Jules that came out this year that I love, and that was a hopeful movie. It was a movie that brought people together, brought importance to a specific community, right? So that was like a hopeful alien encounter. A movie like Arrival that helped, talk about faith in love and humanity, meaning of life, kind of thing like that. So that, again, those were aliens that were helping us realize things. But this one brought it back to like, no, aliens are here and they want to freaking kill us. They're here to freaking hoard our bodies, infiltrate, and all that stuff. And I loved it. It was a very low budget movie. It was, I believe the budget, I'm looking at it right now, 22.8 million, right? And it had no freaking dialogue. No one spoke in the whole damn movie. You may have heard like maybe one or two words spoken on a TV or whatever. But Caitlin Dever, is it Dever or Dever? I never know how to pronounce it. She didn't say a single word until like maybe close to the end, where I think she says, "I'm sorry," or "I love you," or something like that, as she's seeing flashbacks or imagery of her mom and her best friend. But her acting too was just so strong. To be able to act throughout an entire movie without saying a single line of dialogue, and basically to rely on your physical acting, your emotional acting, your facial acting. She is so good. And I liked her before, and the things I've seen her do before, like I thought she's a very good actress, nice up and coming actress. But this one, whew, blew me away. Blew me away. And again, I love what they did with the whole scary aspect of the aliens. It reminded me a lot of Signs and Fire in the Sky, like those two movies that really put an evil spin on the whole alien invasion, alien encounter thing. And I also love the fact that they had different types of aliens depending on the purpose. Like, what was the deal with that giant spider alien? Oh my God, that one was freaky. Really, really freaky. And it was done so well. I mean, the majority of it happened at night, so that's how they could like really save on the CG and make it look good for that amount of budget. But I loved, again, like the slide of sight. That's what I'm going to call it, slide of sight. When the moments where she's like hiding and you only hear the aliens walking, or you see the shadow, or you see a reflection, or you hear the sound, and she has to react to that without really seeing what it is that's approaching or that's around the corner or anything. Like, I love that. I loved how they did that. It was just so good. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but I thought it was a brilliantly done film. That really gave me, at the time of watching it, the heebie-jeebies as I was watching it. I was like, damn, a lot of these moments are really freaky and creepy. Creepy is a good word for sure. Creepy. There was a lot of creepy moments throughout it. But I do love that whole gimmick. And you could call it a gimmick because it is a gimmick that they chose to do, is just having no dialogue, no talking points. And I love the twist in the story of Bryn, the main character played by Caitlin, and how you could tell that there was something going on with her in the town. She was not liked for whatever reason. and how when that revelation finally came out, and the aliens themselves helped her come to terms with it, which is a very interesting thing that they did. You know, we found out that she was the cause of the death of her friend because they were having like an argument, and she, you know, let the rage take over, and she used a rock and smashed it on her friend's face and caused her to die. That's why she's looked upon, she's frowned upon in this community that she's living in the house that her mom owns, who I believe also passed away. So she's living alone in this house in a town where no one likes her, and all she wants to do is be liked and just live amongst the community. So I love how the ending itself was like a Pleasantville ending, where because of the aliens who basically invaded Earth like 100%, took over all of the bodies by using that like crazy creature thing that like attaches to the throat, and basically mind control them. They let her go because she was able to each time to fight them off. She was like the only human that was able to fight against the aliens' power. So, you know, they sympathize with her when they were reading her thoughts, and they see like, oh, she was living this kind of life. So they made her a perfect life on Earth, a Pleasantville living experience where she's able to dance and laugh and have like a Hollywood ending, which was so in itself creepy. And I love how it pans away and you just see all the alien ships everywhere just hovering about, giving you that idea and that belief that Earth has just been fully overrun. Oh man, it was a lot of fun to watch that. I really enjoyed it. It was great. So that makes my number 2 on the list. My number 1 on the list is Talk to Me. And I have a feeling a lot of people will have this on their list as one of the best horror movies to come out this year. By the way, No One Will Save You, I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd. And Talk to Me, I also give 4 stars on Letterboxd. Another brilliant addition to the A24 horror filmography. It was an Australian film. I believe everyone in the film was Australian, acting-wise. Again, another great premise, simple premise. Very, very low budget. Unbelievably low budget. $4.5 million budget. And what did it make at the box office? $90.5 million. Unreal. But I love the full-on Australian cast. I love seeing Miranda Otto again. You know, those of you who remember her from Lord of the Rings. She's great in this movie. The main actress, Sophie Wilde, fantastic as Mia. But I love the concept. I love the concept that it's this artifact that kids turn into a freaking drinking game, right? Just like kids do. Like when you like how they play their Ouijas or like the Bloody Marys and all that stuff like that, and how they turn this artifact and legit lore into a drinking game. And it's an actual supernatural event that happens that they allow themselves to experience over and over again, right? And then what happens when you carry it on too far, when it becomes an addiction and you don't know when to stop, and the wrong people do it, right? Like that kid, Joe, who didn't know how Joe Bird is the actor, Riley is the boy, I believe. You know, because he's too young. He doesn't know how to handle it. And fucked him up. And his soul was trapped, and they were trying so hard to get his soul out. And what happens? She got trapped in it as well. That's it. Now she became one of the souls that you will see as you do your whole handshake thing. Talk to me. Boom. Spirit. Freaky too when they kind of show that whole thing happening, the effect it has on the person doing it, and what they actually see, the image of the soul that they're talking to or that they see there in the room. Right? And it also very freaky when you actually see the point of view of the soul in that dimension. When they had all those lost souls or limboed souls surrounding the boy, the lost boy, that was scary. That was very creepy. You know, and what happens when you have the wrong soul? You know, how does that affect you? As the tone was set in the beginning of the movie with what happened to that brother. Like, that was really scary and creepy. But I loved it. I thought it was very smartly done because, again, it was simple. Keep it simple and keep it relatable. You know, anyone who's been in a party, there's always that like game that everyone loves to play. And the more risque, the better, right? Especially like when you talk about like college kids and their frat parties or whatever. Especially when it involves social media, because everyone was on their TikToks and Instagrams posting the videos of people going through it, and it became a viral sensation. It's like, oh, talk to me game, and all that. Right? So I loved it. And this looks like this could potentially be the first franchise for A24. A24 made it known this year that they want to dive more into action films, franchisable IPs, which I'm slightly worried about. But if they keep their heads to where it's been this whole time, then I have no concern really, because I think they'll know how to handle it. But this could be their very first franchise, because the way the movie ended with Mia actually showing up as one of the spirits in the game, Talk to Me, in another country. So it's known that these artifacts, they're more than just one, and it's not necessarily in one particular region. It could be multiple regions, right? So there's a lore in that too. It's like, why are there so many of these artifacts? Who are these gypsies that are cutting their hands off, or whatever the case is, right? So there's a lore in there that still needs to be explored. But I love how Mia, who was a participant, became one of the main attractions, so to speak, right? And that's how that movie ended, right? So I could see them doing a sequel of, okay, now this is the next chapter. This is what could happen now. Will it still be, revolving around Mia? Maybe she's trying to get back to the real world, or maybe she's trying to like figure things out. Why did this happen to me? Whatever. So I could see them exploring this whole universe more. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And the overall reaction to this movie was phenomenal. This is probably one of the more highly rated horror movies of the year. 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.2 on IMDb. Like I said, I rated it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. The average rating on Letterboxd for this film, let's see if I could find that here, is a 3.6, which is not terrible. That's pretty good, right? I guess. But I loved it. I thought it was extremely well done. And I know I keep like saying this over and over again. It's all about the simplicity of it all. Not a lot of crazy special effects, not a lot of crazy out of left field premises or whatever. It was simple. And that's key. If you keep things simple, keep the budgets low, and just focus on the story. Focus on the characters, make them likable, make people want to invest in these characters and the story. that's what's going to make your movie successful. That and tapping into these pockets of niches that aren't fulfilled yet. Again, to do a callback to what I was talking about earlier in the episode. So yeah, so those were like my 5 favorite horror movies of the year. Talk to Me, No One Will Save You, Knock at the Cabin, Evil Dead Rise, and Renfield. I'm curious as to what your favorite horror movies of the year have been so far. Definitely let me know in the comments, or shoot over an email. Give us your thoughts on the horror movie genre of 2023, and what other horror movies you may be looking forward to coming out in the future. All right, well, you know what? That's going to do it for our episode this week. Thank you again so much for tuning in and listening. Again, I can't express enough my appreciation for all the support that you've been giving this podcast, and the YouTube channel too. I had a blast at New York Film Festival, if I haven't said that enough already. I can't wait to share more of my thoughts about the movies that I've seen there. I actually can't wait for all of you to see the films that I saw that aren't out yet. So yeah, again, thank you so much. If you haven't done so yet, please don't forget, leave a nice rating on the podcast platform for this channel. Leave a comment. Use the email address in the description of this episode to shoot over a question that could be featured in a future episode. If you happen to be also subscribed to our YouTube channel, the Lowkey Geek YouTube channel, don't forget to check out the videos, leave a like to those videos. And if you leave a comment, we can have great conversations on there as well. And check out our affiliates. Another great way to help support the channel here is to check out the affiliates and participate or purchase something. Check out the merch shop, buy a shirt, sticker, what have you. Great ways to, again, help support us, help support in our growth, so that we could continue having fun in the future there. So with all that said and out of the way, I've been Renee. This has been the Movie Time Podcast. We hope to have Blake with us next time. So until then, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe. Catch you all in the next one. All right, peace out, everyone. Bye-bye. Happy Halloween.